Welcome, dear friends. This is the waiting room. This is where your therapy will be held and where I will be discussing whatever it is that I talk about. Now, I know why you've all come here. Perhaps to gain a higher insight into auditory pleasure that you've never experienced. Or maybe you just want to listen to a depressed marsupial talk about music. Either way, you're at the right place. Kind of. Now, let's hop to it. Okay, hold on. Before we continue the video, there are a few things I'd like to clarify first. This is by no means a ranking video. I will simply be talking about my favorite albums, in no particular order whatsoever. So I'm glad that's out of the way, and if you have any questions, I'm probably not going to answer them. But let's go on. Firstly, we have Minutes to Midnight, Linkin Park album, and jeez, it's hard, talking about Linkin Park, because Chester is a legend to me, and I know that a lot of people are more partial towards, like, Hybrid Theory or Meteora. Don't get me wrong, I love these albums too, I love Linkin Park in general, but I guess this album is sort of, I don't know, it's kinda just hit the right spots, I guess. Songs there are so touching and sweet, and it sort of gives off a weird type of in-between type of vibe. I mean, it makes sense though. It was like the first album where Mike and Chester had tracks where they sang independently, and I mean, it had absolute gems like Leave Out All the Rest, Bleed It Out, Shadow of the Day. God, it's honestly a beautiful album. Anybody who's a Linkin Park album, Linkin Park fan, I'm sure you guys have your own preferences in Linkin Park, to Linkin Park's music, but for me, it's just this album in particular that really sells it for me. Well, not sells it, it's just awesome, okay? Anyways, next album, Hydrograd by Stone Sour. Okay, so this is an album I'm not too sure what the general consensus is on, but I think it's pretty cool. I got this album when I was away from home. We were on holiday or something. It was a long-ass drive, and I don't know, so we had one of those weird CD player things in the car, and listen to CDs back then. And I had this thing on, throughout the whole ride, and it's just a kick-ass album in general. There's really nothing else to say. It's kind of not too heavy like some of Stone Sour's other stuff, but at the same time, not super light either. Like I said, though, kind of like Minutes to Midnight, it's a good middle ground. And it just fits really well. Every track kind of flows really well into each other. I especially love The Witness Trees. I think that's probably my favorite song on the album. Not my favorite Stone Sour song, period, but I guess on this album it is. Okay, so before I talk about the next one, I just want to say that, I know it's a bit obscure in terms of what I already talked about, but hey, it's a diverse list. Jesus, okay, a diverse list, okay. And that is none other than the Cardigans. The album I will be discussing is The First Pound of the Moon. So this one was kind of hard to come up with because I wasn't really sure whether I wanted to put this album or Life on the list. I love them both, but I think ultimately I chose this one because it was just a bit more, I don't know, I guess it flowed. Okay, no. They both kind of flowed really nicely. But this one has somewhat of a darker tone, especially in the first few tracks. And I think it's one of the few Cardigan albums that actually, where Nina Persson, the singer, actually cusses, and I thought that's pretty cool. Aside from that though, it just gives off sort of a melancholy-ish kind of tone, like a happy, sad type of feeling. You'll see that theme repeated throughout this video. It's the kind of stuff that sort of scratches a niche that I'm really akin to. I know that sounds weird, but it's just really cool. Besides, the rendition of Black Sabbath's Iron Man is just something that really, really deserved to be made. Imagine this, a pop singer singing a metal song, Sure, I guess it's been done before, but I don't know, this one's just really cool. It's like a really soothing lullaby, almost. And it's kind of angsty as well. I mean, the album in general. And, yeah, it's... Okay, well, that's that. Phoenix, by Grey Days. The Phoenix, sorry. Okay, this album is so good. Like, fucking amazing type of amazing. Another one of Chester's projects by Grey Days. I will say that I had trouble choosing between this and Amends, so I'm gonna talk about both of them. They're both on this list, okay? Spoilers, I guess. But the songs on this album are timeless, and I just love the cleaned up versions of them. I mean, I know that some people kind of prefer the originals, but I think they just really did an amazing job of just sort of polishing off the music, making things sound great again. I mean, better than they would have sounded either way, but just being able to hear Chester's voice again in new music is a treat for any day, really. Next off, we have Ultraviolet by Poets of the Fall. Now, this is a very special album to me, personally. It sort of signified my matric year, me becoming an adult, kind of. It just came out around the same time when I was finishing high school, and along the same time when I actually discovered the band, more or less, and it's an album that I sort of listened to when it came out. I mean, I've been listening to Poets of the Fall for about a couple of months before that, but this album was like so high in quality, I mean, especially compared to the last album, which I think was Clearview. I mean, I love that album too, but the production quality wasn't the best. The songs on the album themselves, it has sort of a weird kind of transition where the first half of it is like really, really high paced and exciting, and then it kind of dampens down into a really mellow type of more soothing, lullaby-ish composition of music. And I mean, Marco's voice, well, let's just say there's a reason why he's known as the best male singer in Europe, and it really, really freaking shows here. Oh, wait, what? What could that be? Something cometh this way, something spooky. Oh no, it's almost too haunting to deal with. That's right, folks. Next up, we've got Impera by Ghost. Now, this album, it's a fucking sweetheart. I love it. It is probably the album I play most out of everything, like, period. It's almost unhealthy how often I play this thing. Okay. I think most people kind of like this album by Ghost, but don't love it. And I know that because most people hate Prequel, their previous album. They thought it was too poppy. I mean, granted, it was their most poppiest album, Prequel, that is. And Impera kind of harbors back to a more 80s rock kind of feel. But more than that, it's really experimental as well. I mean, especially on tracks like 20s, even Call Me a Little Sunshine. And I gotta talk about Griftwood, though. That's an anthem that... it's just such a badass song. But I think the most important song on this entire album, it's gotta be Respite on the Spiderfields. I think I pronounced that right. By far the best, or one of the best pieces of music, like music alone, the guitar riffs on that, guitar solos, jeez, that really shows how damn talented Tobias Forge is as a singer-songwriter, and it really, really shows. Okay, so now we've got Amends. Like I said previously, this was going to be on the list, and it is. Just like the Phoenix, it's, again, you know, such an amazing thing to just listen to Chester again. I feel like Amends has a slightly darker tone than the Phoenix does, especially with all the themes of depression, drug abuse, suicide. It really harbors all those emotions and stuff. part of me almost likes Chester's music more in these other bands as opposed to Linkin Park. I mean, don't get me wrong, whenever I think of Linkin Park, it's medicine to me, that's the word I use to describe it. But just hearing Chester in all of his rawness, it's something that can never be replicated, and I don't think it ever should be. I mean, yeah, there are AI covers and stuff, and it's cool, don't get me wrong, I've listened to them, but there's just something so special about hearing Chester's music when he was a kid. I mean, I think I heard somewhere that Chester was like 19 or 20 years old when he made Grey Days, and he was the oldest dude in the band, so imagine that. It's mind-blowing. On to our next album, we have Without You I'm Nothing by Placebo. So this album for me is also such... it's okay. Whenever people ask me about this album, the best way I can describe it is a blanket of sorrow and comfort. And by that I mean, like I said, with the first band on the moon, it's really melancholic, but strangely happy type of album. The songs here are sort of light in instrumental, but at the same time really heavy, lyrically speaking. It's really difficult thing to honestly achieve in modern day music especially, and it has that really sweet 90s vibe about it that you'd never hear today. I mean, unless you really try to make it, I guess, but there are some songs in this album, like Burger Queen, which is a really sad but soothing song. I'm not gonna say what my favorite song on the album is, because for anybody who hears this album, or anybody who will eventually listen to this album, it's a really sad but special song, and you'll know exactly what I mean when you listen to it. Moving on to something a bit different, or rather different in tone. Not really tone, but I mean musically. Got none other than Point 5, The Great Chapter by Slipknot. I'm guessing you Stone Sour fans kind of saw that coming. Okay, I know, people aren't the biggest fans of this album. You know, everybody's like, oh, Slipknot's self-titled album, or Iowa's the best. Yeah, this album's the heaviest, but I don't necessarily think they're the best. I mean, yeah, okay, they're great albums, but at the same time, I kind of feel like there's sort of a more cathartic feel about The Great Chapter. I mean, besides the fact that I think it's just extremely emotion-driven, especially it being made in honor of Paul Gray, the late bassist of the band, you can really hear how talented these guys are as musicians, how talented Corey is as a singer. I mean, not that we haven't heard it before, but it's really emphasized on this album, especially on tracks like Kill Pop, or even 19, which is, again, another type of anthem, but not in like the more, like heretic anthem kind of way, more in a kind of just something, just a piece of music to be sort of played in your own space that nobody else can understand. It's hard to explain, but it's also really, really, really heavy. I mean, like, I don't get why people say, like, oh, this is such a melodic album. I mean, yeah, it is, but there were some extremely fucking heavy songs on this thing, too. Like, we've got Custer, Lech, The Negative One, which is one of my favorite Slipknot songs ever, and those are extremely, extremely heavy. So much, like I said, raw emotion and anger and pain and sadness and joy, all wrapped into one. It's pure catharsis. And, okay, before we move on, I just want to say, yeah, I know, okay, I try to keep this list as diverse as possible, and I already talked about 3 albums that were Chester Bennington based, and I apologize for that. He's just such a great musician, and honestly, it would feel like kind of a crime if I didn't put them on there. I'd be lying to myself. That being said, our last album is Out of Ashes by Dead by Sunrise. Yeah, I bet you saw this coming. Again, amazing masterpiece of an album. Chester, fucking amazing singer, songwriter. he really is a legend. Okay, I'm just repeating myself about that kind of stuff. I mean, Dead by Sunrise, though, I actually listened to this when I was outside. I was outside the country. I was in Mauritius at the time. We were driving around, like, touring and stuff, and I had this album on repeat. And, dude, it just, like, flows so well. Again, it's sort of harboring more of that melancholic kind of feeling. I don't know how to... Okay, I mean, not necessarily in the sense of, like, First Beyond the Moon or Without You I'm Nothing. It's a lot more rocky than that, but just the music itself. I mean, the synthesizers, the guitar riffs, everything just tonally sounds like it fits a more, not necessarily gothic, but sad type of, not even grungy, but just alternative feel. And I know the sad part is that Chester wrote this in a really bad time in his life when he was depressed, and that's obviously terrible. I mean, I would never wish that upon anyone, but I'd also be lying if I said that I wouldn't pay Chester to remake the Dead by Sunrise album. That's how much I love it, especially with songs like Into You, which is almost nostalgic in a weird way. Like, it's one of the songs that you listen to and you feel like just takes you back even though you've never heard it before. And also Fire, which became one of my favorite Chester songs ever. It's just such a beautiful song. I very much recommend listening to it. And, yeah, that kind of sums up all the albums I was talking about. And I kind of thought, you know, a good way to end the video would be to talk about Carl Cronin. I think he has a middle name. Okay, I didn't do my research, but... So basically, Carl Cronin was this assassin dude from the Hellboy movies, yeah? A Nazi experiment gone right, technically. He can't die because his body's full of, like, a bunch of sand and stuff, and he has this weird mechanism inside his heart that kind of stops it. And so he can die. Well, technically not die, just be switched off, because he's technically already dead. He was in World War II as one of, as a German sergeant or something. Obviously having extremely amazing fighting capabilities, skills, surprisingly good tactician as well, and an amazing assassin. And he's, like, such a badass there. I mean, yeah, he's evil and he's a Nazi, but he's still one of the coolest villains I've ever seen there. Besides, like, you know, people are like, oh, Black Noir is, like, such a silent killer. He ain't got shit. Or Carl Cronin, let me tell you that. Besides, I'm pretty sure he's still not dead, because, like, in the first Hellboy, Hellboy pushes him into, like, a well of spikes and throws a cog on him. But I don't think that ever actually killed him. I don't think he can die. That's pretty cool, I thought. But, yeah. I hope you enjoyed your therapy session, and if you didn't, well, it's okay, because there's gonna be more. And with this more therapy, there's more videos or something. I love talking about stuff. Okay, bye!